Step inside the dugout. I'm Alec, and this is the Sports Breakdown MLB Show. Today on the show, you get my waiver wire ads. I have a bunch of pitchers and a bunch of hitters to go over today, so we're not going to waste any time. And these guys are all under 80% rostered on whatever platform you use. And we start with the pitchers. The first one is Seattle Mariners starting pitcher Emerson Hancock. This is the guy at the end of last season that was pitching out of the bullpen for the Mariners. And now he's in their start. He's the fifth guy in their starting rotation. And I don't think he's losing that spot in the rotation when they are healthy. I think they might just go to a six-person rotation. And I don't think he's losing his job. And if you need starting pitching help because you've lost Blake Snell or you have pitchers that are just struggling, I would highly recommend adding a guy like Emerson Hancock. The next pitcher I'm going to talk about on the waiver wire is Minnesota Twins starting pitcher Taj Bradley. Taj has had a nice start to the season. He's just over 60% rostered. And I think it is time that he needs to be over that 80% mark so we don't have to talk about him more than one time on the show. I would highly recommend, like I just said about Emerson Hancock, if you're having issues with starting pitching in your fantasy league, go ahead and add Taj Bradley and Emerson Hancock. The next guy is Jack Leiter. I know his last start didn't go very well, but I have a feeling that Jack Leiter is going to turn it around. He's also just 63% rostered. And if you need help with starting pitching, I would add him at your own risk if he's available. And there's a few guys I would drop for him. I would drop Brandon Pfaadt for him. I would drop any of the Nationals starting pitchers for him, except for maybe Foster Griffin. The next guy I'm going to talk about on the waiver wire is Ryan Weathers of the Yankees, 27% rostered. Weathers just his last start just pitched really well. He had a one-hitter going into the seventh inning, and he gave up a couple hits and a run. But he's looked really good for the Yankees so far, early on in the season. And he is just 27% rostered. And I think he needs to be rostered in more leagues, just like I said about the first three guys. And the next guy I'm going to talk about is a guy that I think he's slightly breaking out, but you need to watch the injury report because he did leave his last start early with an injury, but they said he avoided serious injury, and that is Kyle Harrison of the Brewers, only 39% rostered. And I think the Brewers pitching lab has done it again. And I don't know, why am I not surprised at this point? They do it every year. They find somebody. Last year was Chad Patrick. This year it's Kyle Harrison. The final pitcher I'm going to talk about is Bryce Elder of the Atlanta Braves. He had a really good start. He's had a nice start to the season for the Braves. And he's only 57% rostered. Harrison was 39. Elder is 57% rostered. I think we need to get all these pitchers that I just talked about over that 80% mark so we can throw some new guys into the fold next week on the waiver wire video. which is going to either be every Sunday or Monday during the season. It just depends on my work schedule. But now we get to the outfielders. Now we get to the hitters. And I've got 5 outfielders here. The first one is Elliot Ramos of the Giants, 51% rostered. Ramos is playing virtually every day for the Giants in the outfield, and he's gotten off to a hot start to the season. If you lost Brett Rooker, or you have a guy that's struggling in the outfield to start the season, highly would suggest adding Elliot Ramos to your team. Again, he's only 51% rostered. The next outfielder I'm going to talk about is Sal Frelick of the Milwaukee Brewers. And I forgot to put his roster right down, but obviously, as you know, he's under 80% rostered. And he has been starting in right field basically almost every day since the start of the season. And the Sal Frelick's been mashing. If you need, again, just like I said about Elliot Ramos, if you need help in the outfield because you had Brett Rooker or you have an outfielder that just hasn't had a hot start to the season and you want to play the matchups, go ahead and pick up Sal Frelick. The next guy I'm going to talk about is first base outfielder Troy Johnston from the Rockies, 8% rostered. Now, these next few guys are kind of deeper league guys, dynasty. Troy Johnston has had a good start to the season for the Rockies, and I think that it is fair enough to say he's a must-add at this point. He does play first base, DH. I haven't seen him in the outfield yet, but I believe Troy Johnston can help you. Next one is Owen Casey of the Marlins, 27% rostered. And if you, again, like I said about Ramos, like I said about Frelick, if you need help in the outfield, go ahead and add Owen Casey, who I can almost guarantee you right now the Cubs wish they still had, because they just got Seiya Suzuki back. Matt Shaw's been okay, but can we really trust Seiya Suzuki to stay healthy? And then, not to skip over him, but if you need catching help, I've got Nick Fortes of the Rays, who has started the season off hot. He was hitting over 300, and I believe he still is. He's 3% rostered. And this one's for 2 catcher leagues, or if you have a catcher like Cal. I'm not saying to trade Cal Raleigh, but if you need a backup catcher, because there is times where Cal Raleigh's not going to have a game, I would add him. And the last guy I'm going to talk about in the waiver wire is Luis Angel Acuna, 4% rostered, outfielder / second baseman for the White Sox. And I will get to another. The White Sox are calling up 2 prospects, and I will talk about them here in a second. But Luis Angel Acuna has played a lot to start the season. He's been in center field. He's been at third, shortstop, second base. He's virtually a lock to be in a White Sox lineup every day. And the White Sox are adding 2 young guys to the roster tomorrow. One of them being Noah Schultz. And if somehow Noah Schultz is out there in your fantasy league, which I don't know why he would, unless you're like a 10-man or 8-man league, I would absolutely go out and add a guy like Noah Schultz, because he's going to qualify for Rookie of the Year. And it's Sam Andanucci, I believe that's how you say his name, is the other prospect that the White Sox are calling up tomorrow. So they will both be making their major league debuts for the White Sox tomorrow. And when I did my prospect profile, my prospect stuff, you know what that meant? I was looking for all these prospects to get called up, and they have. But, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up this episode of Inside the Dugout, MLB, the MLB Show. Have a wonderful. Wait, before I get out of here, we do have merch for the Sports Breakdown YouTube channel for a couple of our podcasts. And I would highly appreciate if you did purchase some merch or a membership, as I did update the memberships yesterday as well. But other than that, have a lovely rest of your Monday. I will see you with another episode of this probably next week. Have a wonderful Monday.